God's chosen ones. You'll regret ignoring this prophetic date. Avoid July 14th and 15th. Chosen one, stop scrolling. Heaven just paused your timeline, not for fear, but for faith. There are 2 days ahead, July 14th and 15th, and they are not ordinary. They are gates, spiritual thresholds disguised as calendar squares, and how you walk through them will echo into the rest of your year. Not with thunder, not with signs, but with silence. Not everyone will feel it, but you will. That pressure in your chest, that unshakable stillness. It's not anxiety, it's alignment. If your spirit whispered, "This is me," comment 484 below. Let it be your sign to heaven. I will stay aligned. The room feels normal. Your routine hasn't changed, but something in the atmosphere has. There's a tightness in your chest. You can't explain. You've woken up 3 nights in a row too. Fingers up, May 3. Date other job. Going to father. You chalked it up to stress, but your soul knows better because you've felt it. The pressure, the pulling, a strange stillness before something breaks. This is not random. You are standing between 2 invisible doors, and the 14th and 15th of July are not just dates. They are prophetic gates, thresholds, hinge points, moments so quiet, even your spirit must lean in to hear. And here's what no one tells you. The most dangerous warfare is not chaos. It's comfort that makes you numb. It's the almost harmless message. The invitation from someone God already told you to release. The temptation wrapped in old prayers that no longer serve your future. It's watching for posture. Will you cancel the plan that everyone says is no big deal? Will you fast when no one else is? Will you delete the number even if it still pulls at your memory? Because what you do in silence, what you choose in stillness, will become the sound that shapes your next season. You're not just being warned. You're being positioned. Not everyone gets this kind of message. Not everyone hears the whisper, but you're hearing it now because you were meant to. If you were watching this, it's not by accident. This is your prophetic interruption, not to scare you, but to steady you. You are not weak. You are being weighed. And what comes next will not wait for your feelings, only your obedience. Part 1. The pressure that found you in silence. You didn't ask for this weight. It found you quietly, in the moments between distractions, in the way your breath caught for no reason in the middle of the day, in the ache you couldn't explain, not in your body, but in your spirit. At first, you thought it was exhaustion, maybe burnout, hormones, stress, but deep down, something whispered, "This is spiritual," and you were right. The pressure you've been carrying isn't punishment, it's positioning, because something is coming, and your soul felt it before your mind ever understood it. July 14th and 15th. Just dates on the calendar to some, but to you, they've been pressing in without even being spoken. This pressure isn't random. It's divine. It's preparation dressed like anxiety. It's heaven checking your gates before the storm hits. Lately, everything has felt heavier. The conversations that used to light you up now feel hollow. Your patience has been thin. Your hunger for noise has faded. You crave silence even if you don't understand why. It's because your spirit is tuning itself to a whisper, not a shout, not a prophecy in thunder, but a still trembling urgency that says, "Don't miss this gate." And what you're feeling right now, it's not fear, it's the gravity of spiritual transition. You are standing in the birthing room of your next assignment, and birthing never feels light. It stretches, it breaks, it presses, it prepares. You haven't lost your way. You've outgrown it. That's why everything that once felt familiar now feels uncomfortable. God is detaching you from what no longer fits, not to harm you, but to position you. That's why your heart doesn't settle like it used to. That's why your phone drains your peace. That's why sleep isn't restful. That's why joy feels delayed, because you are being refined. Not publicly, privately, in the quiet corners no one sees, but heaven is watching. You are not being punished. You are being weighed, not in sin, not in failure, but in readiness, because what's coming isn't about information. It's about position. And only the aligned will hear what comes after the gate. So if you've been feeling fragile, let me tell you what that really means. You're still soft enough to be shaped, still sensitive enough to hear, still surrendered enough to pass this test. This is the pressure before the promise. And if it feels like too much, it's only because the next chapter is heavier than the last, and heaven is making sure your hands are strong enough to carry it. Chosen one, breathe. You're not falling apart. You're being reassembled. And what breaks off in this pressure was never meant to go with you through the gate. You are standing at the edge of something eternal. And heaven is leaning in not to crush you, but to ask one question: can I trust you under weight? If that question hits something in your spirit, pause. Don't move on. Don't scroll. Let the pressure do its holy work, because the 14th and 15th, they're not about punishment. They're about proving ground. And you've already been chosen to walk through it. Part 2. The trap of familiarity. It won't look like a demon. It won't sound like danger. When the enemy tries to derail a chosen one, he doesn't use fire. He uses familiarity. That's what makes this test so devastating, because what's coming for you on July 14th and 15th will not feel like warfare. It will feel like comfort. It will come dressed in a voice you used to trust. A text that reads, "Just checking in." An opportunity you once prayed for, but that no longer fits who you're becoming. It won't shout, it'll whisper, and if your discernment isn't sharp, you'll call it peace. But it will be a trap. This is the trap that always gets the chosen ones. Not sin that shocks the system, but comfort that slowly seduces you back to what God already delivered you from. And the enemy, he knows you're too close to destiny to fall for something loud. So now he sends the subtle, the safe, the soft, the almost healed, almost aligned, almost obedient. But almost is the devil's favorite word, because almost obedience is still rebellion, and almost surrender still gives the enemy access. Some of you will be tested through people, familiar voices who speak to your feelings, but not your future. You've changed. They'll say, you're being too intense. God's not that strict. And if you aren't anchored in discernment, you will listen, and the voice of conviction will grow quieter. You'll say, maybe it's not that deep, but it is, because these 2 days, July 14th and 15th, are spiritual forks in the road, and what you entertain on those days will echo into your next season. This is not to scare you, it's to shake you, because many chosen ones delay their destiny, not by saying no to God, but by saying yes to something that just felt easier. This is the trap of familiarity, familiar patterns, familiar wounds, familiar doors that lead to the same wilderness you cried to get out of. And here's what's terrifying. They won't look like traps. They'll look like timing. You'll say, but I used to pray for this. This feels peaceful. God wouldn't bring it back if I wasn't ready. But what you don't see is that not every good thing's a God thing. And not every return is a rescue. Some are a test to see if you'll go back just because it's familiar. So hear me, chosen one. God is not testing your gifting. He's testing your pattern breaking. Can you say no to what used to comfort you? When you're lonely, can you delete the message before the conversation even starts? Can you feel the pull of your old self and still choose the pain of alignment? That's what July 14th and 15th will reveal. And here's the secret the enemy doesn't want you to remember. You've already passed this test before. You've already walked away once, already let go, already healed. This is not a new enemy. It's a recycled temptation coming back with softer language and a stronger costume. But your spirit already knows. You've been feeling it. That pause in your soul when the invite came. That tightness in your chest after the call. That strange heaviness when you started thinking about maybe just seeing how they're doing. That's not guilt. That's the spirit guarding your gates. You're too close now to play with old fires. And heaven is watching. Not to condemn you, but to confirm you. This is not rejection. This is refinement. You're not being punished. You're being promoted. But only if you can pass the trap that's wrapped in what used to feel safe. So when the call comes, when the door opens, when the text arrives, pause, pray, ask, does this speak to my destiny or just my desires? And if your peace trembles, even for a second, walk away. The blessing you're waiting for is too holy to be shared with what God already buried. Familiar doesn't mean faithful, and peaceful doesn't always mean pure. If this word cut deep, it's because you were chosen to see it coming and close the door this time. Part 3. God is watching, and not to punish, but to promote. You've been wondering why the silence feels so loud lately, why your prayers hit different, why your peace feels fragile like glass underfoot. It's not random. It's spiritual surveillance. Heaven isn't ignoring you. It's observing you. Not to punish, but to promote. This isn't the kind of testing that screams. It's not about a crisis you can see. It's not about a storm you can name. It's about what happens when no one is clapping, no one is checking in, and the only witness to your obedience is God. This is a holy evaluation, and the 2 days ahead, July 14th and 15th, are your proving ground. You've asked for elevation. You've cried for clarity. You've begged for release. But God doesn't hand out next-level assignments based on public prayers. He releases them based on private posture. Can I trust you? He asks when there's no audience. That's what these days will test. Not your potential, not your power, but your posture in silence. Because heaven isn't watching how loud you shout. It's watching how quickly you obey. No one will see you delete the number. No one will applaud you for fasting when no one asked. No one will send you a trophy for canceling that harmless meeting that felt just a little bit off. But heaven will record it, and your future will feel it. Because these decisions, though small in the moment, are seated in eternity. You thought God was quiet because you did something wrong. But what if he's silent because you're finally getting it right? What if this silence is not abandonment, but an examination room, a sacred space where he watches? Will you keep your alignment even when no one is watching the test? There's a difference between asking for breakthrough and being ready to carry it, and many people miss their moment, not because they weren't called, but because they didn't recognize the test when it came wrapped in normal days. Because these 2 days ahead, they will feel normal. You'll wake up like it's just another day. You'll check your phone, get dressed, take calls, answer texts, make plans. But in the spirit, there will be movement. Books being opened, scrolls being read, weights being measured. You won't hear the trumpet, but heaven will be watching your every move. With mercy, not judgment, because you've been asking for something you can't yet see. And now God is checking if your discipline matches your desire. Not everyone gets this kind of moment. Only the marked ones. The ones who didn't quit when it got hard. The ones who stayed soft in secret. The ones who wept on the floor and said yes again and again, even when it hurt. That's you. You may not feel strong, but you're still standing. And heaven has noticed, so this is the moment not to panic, not to perform, but to prove what your private obedience has always known. I don't need an audience to honor God. The promotion you're praying for, it's not waiting on your perfect track record. It's waiting on your private yes. The weight you feel isn't delay. It's divine measuring. The silence you're walking through. It's not emptiness. It's the presence of a God so close, He doesn't need to shout. And this is the question he's whispering. Will you obey, even when it feels like no one is watching? Because someone is, heaven is, hell is, and you're being positioned, not punished, promoted. Part 4. The test is in the stillness. There will be no trumpet sound, no flashing warning, no angelic announcement, just stillness. And if you're not spiritually awake, you'll miss it. This is the test most people fail. Not because they're rebellious, not because they're sinful, but because they're too distracted to discern that God often hides his most sacred assignments inside the quietest days. And what's coming on July 14th and 15th? It will look quiet, but the wait will be undeniable. You'll wake up thinking it's just another morning, but your spirit will know this is different. The air will feel heavier, your thoughts will feel louder, and your peace, the one you've fought to protect, will feel like it's being sifted, not by panic, but by choice. This is not a storm that hits you from the outside. This is a pressure that comes from within. Will you check that message again? Will you go, even though you know you shouldn't? Will you shrug off the nudge just this once? It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It'll feel like nothing at all until weeks later, when you realize that was it. That was the gate. You've prayed for clarity, but clarity doesn't always come with confirmation. Sometimes it comes with conviction, and conviction doesn't shout. It settles, it hovers, it tightens the space around a decision until your spirit has no room left to pretend. This is what will happen on those 2 days. The world around you will keep spinning, but heaven will pause, watching to see. Will you follow the nudge when no one else feels it? Will you cancel the plan that felt so right 2 days ago? Will you pause instead of pushing forward? Because this is the test behind the test. Not fire, stillness. Stillness exposes what performance hides. It reveals whether you're truly aligned or just acting like it. And that's why the stillness will feel so heavy. Because you're not being asked to move. You're being asked to wait, to listen, to yield, to prove your discernment by restraint. Restraint. That's the test. Not how well you fight, but how deeply you discern. Can you feel the trap before it opens? Can you say no before anything even begins? Can you hold the line, even when your flesh wants to fold? This is where heaven separates the loud from the loyal, the chosen from the called, not because of how well you speak, but because of how still you're willing to become. And here's what most won't see. Stillness is warfare. It is the refusal to be baited. It is the maturity to remain unmoved by false urgency. You'll be tempted to explain yourself, to make something happen, to answer the call, to revisit the place you said you'd never go again. But your silence, your stillness, will scream in the spirit realm. And that sound will be louder than any shout. Because when you refuse to move, until heaven tells you to, you become unshakable. So don't mistake stillness for stagnation. Stillness is strategy. And these 2 days ahead, they are not tests of strength. They are tests of still surrender. And surrender never looks strong at first. It looks like sitting quietly while the storm taunts you. It looks like deleting the message without defending your decision. It looks like fasting even when no one asked you to. It looks like staying hidden while others chase visibility. But heaven sees it all. You don't have to move to win. You just have to obey. If this part felt like it was written for your secret battles, the quiet ones no one claps for, you're already passing the test. Let me know when you're ready for part 5. The release after the refusal. Because after stillness comes the shift. Part 5. The release after the refusal. There's a moment after the resistance where everything suddenly feels still again. But not the heavy kind. Not the weight that pressed on your soul for days. This stillness feels lighter. Like something unseen has lifted. Like something sacred has been released. Because it has. You didn't realize how close you were. Did you? How those quiet no's, the ones no one saw, The ones that made you cry in secret. The ones that almost didn't seem like they mattered. Shifted everything. Heaven does not need noise to move. It waits for obedience. And that obedience, that holy refusal to compromise when no one else would have known, it just unlocked the very thing you've been praying for. This is the part where the story turns. This is the part no one talks about. Because it doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't come with instant applause. It comes quietly, like the door you almost walked through, quietly shuts behind you, and a new one slowly creaks open ahead. You can't see it fully, but your soul knows something has shifted. Your atmosphere begins to change. That spiritual fog you've been walking through for months, it starts to lift. The confusion that clung to your clarity, it starts to fade. The cycle that kept pulling you back, suddenly, it doesn't feel as strong, because heaven took note of your restraint, and God doesn't waste surrender. He rewards it. And here's the holy secret. The breakthrough doesn't always look like a blessing at first. Sometimes it looks like peace. Peace you didn't have to fight for. Peace that simply rests on you like oil. Peace that doesn't make sense until you remember the weight of what almost pulled you back. That's the kind of peace that confirms you passed. This is the release that only comes after the refusal, after the silence, after the secret knows, after the battle you didn't post about, after the fast you didn't announce, after the alignment you chose in trembling obedience. And now, God begins to whisper again. Not because he left, but because you're clear enough now to hear. That's why your tears feel different today. Why your worship feels deeper. Why your heart doesn't race with anxiety the way it did just days ago. Heaven is responding because when you protect your gate, heaven opens its own. So don't be surprised when things begin to unfold without striving. When favor follows you into rooms you used to feel unqualified to enter. When people who never noticed you before start paying attention, when clarity comes in full color like a veil was lifted from your eyes, this is not random. It is release, and it is proof that God saw everything you did in secret, what you refused in silence, just released what you were promised in prayer. This is why the enemy fought you so hard. This is why the warfare was so precise. He knew if you could just say no, even when no one else was looking, you'd unlock the door he spent years trying to keep closed. But you said no. You stayed aligned. You obeyed in the quiet. And now you've stepped into the shift. Chosen one. This is the beginning of what you were built for. You will not walk with fear. You will not live in confusion. You will not go back to patterns that buried your calling. You will walk in the release. Your refusal made room for, and this time, you'll carry it with clarity, peace, and authority. Because obedience didn't just change your future, it proved you were ready for it. This was not a warning, it was a confirmation. Breathe. If your chest feels lighter, if your soul feels seen, if your spirit is still trembling from what you just walked through, that's not emotion, that's confirmation. You were meant to hear this, not just for awareness, but for alignment, not just to be warned, but to be awakened. The 14th and 15th of July were never about fear. They were about filters, to separate the ones who sing from the ones who surrender, to expose who is merely spiritual by language and who is truly loyal by lifestyle. And you've proven which one you are. You stayed when it was quiet. You obeyed when it was hard. You refused when it was comfortable. Heaven took note. Hell backed off. And now, you're stepping into what was always meant for you. But don't walk away from this word casually. Sit in the stillness a moment longer. Let this question settle in your spirit. If God trusted me with this moment, what else might he be preparing me for? Because this isn't the end. This is the beginning of stewardship. And what God is about to place in your hands requires the same kind of quiet obedience you just gave in secret. So stay low, stay listening, Stay loyal, because chosen one, you passed. You weren't perfect, but you were positioned, and that's what heaven was watching for. You have been refined, realigned, and released, and now the shift begins. If your spirit knows this word was for you, type 777 in the comments. Not for vanity, not for visibility, but as a signal to the spirit to say, I heard you, I obeyed, and I'm ready. Let it be your seal. Let it be your yes. Let it be your final key into the door that's about to open. Next step. Don't just scroll. Like this message to let the algorithm know what feeds your spirit. Share it with one other person, the one you know is walking through silent warfare and needs to hear this before it's too late. Comment what part of this word struck you the most. Your voice might become the very confirmation someone else is praying for. And if you haven't already, subscribe to stay under this covering. This is not just content, it's consecration for those who feel this has been living water to your weary soul. If you feel led to sow into this flow, not out of pressure, but out of prophetic agreement, know this: you're not giving to content, you're fueling a remnant. You're advancing a message that is breaking cycles, healing timelines, and awakening the chosen. Every act of obedience, whether a whisper, a gift, or a share, is seen by heaven, and nothing you do in secret will be forgotten in the courts of God. So walk carefully now. This season ahead will be full of movement, but yours will be different. Not frantic, not grasping, but full of authority, full of peace, and full of the presence of the one who marked you. You are not crazy. You are not late. You were not forgotten. You were chosen, and you proved heaven could trust you again. Type 777 if this was your sign. Stay under the flow, and don't miss what's coming next, because this movement, it's just beginning.